Okay.
10 minutes.
It's all good. I'm gonna move over. Oh, thanks. All right, there we go. Welcome, everybody, to our regular board meeting of the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District. It is 6:10, and we are opening the meeting. Can we get roll call, please?
Yes. Director Aguera?
Here.
Director Laliotis?
Here.
Vice President Finn?
Here.
Thank you.
Pledge of Allegiance, shall we? As you're willing and able, please join us for the pledge. Director Laliotis, would you like to lead us?
Sure.
Okay.
Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
And to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Brian, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
There are no changes this evening.
Thank you. Public comment. This is time that is set aside for the public to address the board on any matter not on the agenda. Testimony related to any agendized matter should be addressed at the time that that item is considered. Do we have public comment this evening?
Yes, you do. My name is Courtney Morrell. I am a 20-year-plus resident of Truckee, and I've been here before at the podium. In fact, it was exactly a year ago this month that after our record-breaking snow year that we had, I came and thanked the PUD. And I thanked the board for funding, and I thanked staff for implementing, and everybody on the line for keeping the power on. And from that thank you led into a discussion of all the work the PUD has done behind the scenes. It was from the vegetation mitigation, and it was the transformer upgrades, and I know I'm not going to have the language right, so I apologize for that, but all the implementation and everything that was being done behind the scenes to improve service and reliability. And so it was noticeable, and I wanted to thank everybody involved. Which brings us to this year and early March when we had that atmospheric river come through and our power stayed on again. And I got a call from Moonshine Inc., one of the reporters there. I'm a board director up in Tahoe-Donner, and so she knows me and called. And she says, the New York Times has been in touch with me. And she says, do you have power in Tahoe-Donner? And I said, yes, we do. And I said, and I want to tell you what the PUD has been doing. So I gave a plug for the PUD to Moonshine Inc. that went to the New York Times about everything that I had learned at this podium and board meeting the year prior. So keep up the good work. Board, keep funding all the improvements and to service and reliability because it is noticeable and makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those kind words, and staff, really, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Do we have other public comment?
Nothing electronically.
Okay, seeing none. It is time for director updates. Director Laliotis, do you have any updates this evening?
No.
Okay. Director Aguera, do you have any updates for us this evening?
I have nothing tonight,
Very good.
Vice President.
Thank you.
But I am getting ready for this little storm we're getting.
It will be a baby storm, I'm sure.
Thank you. And I know the PUD's right on it.
We know we're ready, for sure. Thank you. I just really quickly want to mention upcoming events here. Looking forward to, we have a governing partners meeting for the CTA this week that I'll be attending, and hopefully some staff here will attend it with me, which leads into next Friday. We have our public quarterly CTA meeting, which is the Climate Transformation Alliance. That meeting is open to the public. We welcome everybody to attend and see what the sorts of things that we're, as a larger community, trying to tackle in regards to greenhouse gas reductions. So that is all of my director's comment this evening. And we're going to roll right along to department updates, the best part of the night.
Good evening, Vice President Finn, members of the board. I'm Jared Carpenter, the Electric Utility Director. So tonight, you can go next slide, Brian. So we just have one slide for electrics. We have a few other things in the agenda. But the thing just want to point out was, the March storm is over. It was a good one. Things are resolved. There are a lot of minor repairs, things like fixing our vehicles and things that broke during the storm that that go on for a while. Also, too, there are still some customers with power out due to repairs to their homes, but our power is all flowing fine. We'll be prepared to restore them when they finish their repairs. As a very short day for power purchase for the month of February, it was greener and cheaper than it was in 2022 and 2023, which is a very, very good thing. And we're a lot of work going towards the preparation towards the summer construction season. There's a decent amount of development projects really sitting there right now amongst our standard capital projects. So we're kind of cranking away with that, getting ready. Wanted to show this metrics. Again, we're working into making this more of a habit and show that reliability is up and kind of the way of those very industry standard ones, the SAIDI, SAIFI, and CAIDI. I really want to point out that for 2022, we didn't have the data then yet because we weren't collecting it yet. But you can see 23 we have it, and 24 we have it. So what you see there is in March of 24 versus 23, our outage duration was less. The frequency of outages were about the same. But the one that is kind of neat to see is on that last number, the CAIDI one, minutes of interruption. So what we really want to see in outages is always want to see them as short as possible. And so if there's an outage, please be short. So nice trending that we're going down that direction, shows that things are working. So that's my update.
Good evening, Vice President Fenn, directors, and public. My name is Chad Reed, and I get to do the Water Department updates. We're going to just start off with a quick synopsis of the demand. The demand has been down for the first 3 months of this year, and so it's just something that we're tracking and something that we're kind of watching, and it's not super surprising to us at this point. So we had a really neat opportunity to go to the Alder Creek Middle School, and we were able to team up with a few different agencies. And if I could get the next slide, please. We were able to team up with the Truckee Sanitation District and the Tahoe Truckee Sanitation Authority. Let me make sure I'm getting all my acronyms right. And we were able to go out there and talk about the urban water cycle, which is slightly different than that of the typical water cycle that we talk about. This brings in some of the non-potable water, or the kind of bad water, so to say, after the fact. And we were able to go out, and it really was an exciting opportunity for us with our new strategic initiative that we have, and talking about the stewardship of the basin and things of that nature. We were really excited to go out, and we were able to hit major topics like conservation. We know that we have conservation, a way of life coming, and one of the best things that we have found is to influence a child, you get an entire family. And I think everyone here has had a nagging kid at some point say to them, "Oh, why are you leaving the water running?" or this or that. And so we were very happy with being able to go into this, all the 6th grade classes there, and talk about this. But we're also able to talk about the environmental stewardship. What are we doing? How are we doing it with regards to water? We were able to talk about some of the sewer systems, and I learned great things about Greece that I did not know prior to that experience. We're also able to talk about efficiency, and how do we improve these efficiencies through engineering, and how do they treat that sewage. But the part that we really enjoyed, and we took a map the second day that we were out there, and we had the children put a yellow dot representing where their house is. And one of the things that we were so excited to see on this map is the distribution of how many different households we were able to reach out to during this event. And it was several hundred houses that we were able to get into. So we counted this as a really big success. And our biggest takeaway that we had is that we were amazed at the answers we got when we offered candy for the answers. So candy still works. Thank you.
Mike Salmon, CFO. Jillian is off this week, so I'm going to fill in with her on the human resources and risk matters. And we had successful CPR training last month, and both for those employees that were required to take it and then those that were interested to have a refresher or get their certifications. So that was quite successful. And then we had a spring equinox sunrise yoga in the lobby. I was definitely not part of that. That was at sunrise, but beautiful light in the morning to kick off the spring that is going to go away this weekend. But very successful, nice little event there that the team put together. Core value recognition winners for last month. First one on the left is Chris Cullen for timeliness. Chris was nominated for his timeliness because he is always ready to address any help requested to repair an item or install something, no matter how large or small the project. He is prompt and courteous and always eager to accomplish the task, big and small. He has a great high attention to detail, safety, and dedication to large and small projects. No projects is too small for him. And thank you, Chris, for your timeliness in completing projects. On the right, we have Carlos Reyes in customer service. Carlos was nominated for being an accountable coworker. He was recognized for how hard he works to help all customers, including our Spanish speakers. His bilingual skills are incredibly helpful for the district. His peers say he is personable, easy to talk to, and has a great work ethic, making him a great addition to the team. So thank you, Carlos. Muy bien. Muchas gracias. And then throwing in a couple of finance and accounting items this week is field work for the auditors. This is a picture of them this morning in the Tanini's conference room. So Moss Adams is here doing field work on our annual financial audit, routine financial audit. And they're currently smiling. They left today smiling, so that's good news. Also threw in a part of the day, part of the month. This is, anybody want to guess what Ryan's holding there? Swivel hook. Caught my attention not because I saw him holding it, but because I was approving the invoice. And it kind of choked me up. So that's about a $1,300 part right there. So that's a swivel hook that goes on a digger derrick, very vital and important to be functioning properly and be reliable. And sometimes we have to replace them. So that's part of what we do. Thank you.
Good evening, Vice President Finn, members of the board and public. This is Communications and Strategic Affairs update. We continue to communicate heavily, internally and externally. I want to thank Alex for her excellent work. This update will focus a little more on the strategic affairs side of the department. We did our first compliance filing for the CARB Advanced Clean Fleets regulation that was due March 31st, and we were well in advance. We did claim the low county population exemption with 90% or more in Nevada County, and that's something we lobbied hard for during the development of the regulation. So that delays our compliance to January 1, 2027. And when you look at the commercial availability of large electric vehicles, that's good for us and I think good for the community. We also participated directly in 2 CARB workshops. One was for the implementation of AB 1594, and if you recall, CMUA and NCPA and SCAPA led the effort for that bill last year. That was signed unanimously or signed into law by the governor with very strong support. And it recognized that the role of water, wastewater, and electric utilities was different from the transport of people, goods, and equipment, which is what this regulation really was written for. And so they're starting to implement that regulation. It'll take a year or more. And we're there every day making sure they get it right. We also participated in a Rules Provision Committee workshop on the purchase exemption. And the regulation has an exemption that if a vehicle doesn't exist, then obviously you shouldn't be forced to buy it or be found out of compliance. And for our very large trucks, that's certainly the case today, and we believe will be for a fair amount of time. Unfortunately, CARB staff seems to be enamored by a single spec sheet that any vendor sends in. And so we're really working on ensuring that there's field trials, that there's the ability to manufacture in volume, that there's a service network that can keep the vehicle going should it fail, and again, engage very heavily on that. Also in March, the State Water Resources Control Board released their much-anticipated conservation, making conservation a way of life regulation. That's the combination of the indoor restrictions, the outdoor restrictions, and the water loss. And again, we've been working on that for years. The release of the regulation came with the backdrop of the California Legislative Analyst's Office that published a report a few months back that got picked up by the LA Times, San Francisco, SAC-B, and New York Times and nationally on the fact that this regulation was reviewed and found to be very complex, very expensive, billions of dollars to implement, and will save 1% of California's water. So there were some improvements to the regulations, but we still have major concerns. So our partners, CMUA and Aqua, are leading the effort in Sacramento to represent our interests and try to get the regulation right. We did sign on to the Aqua comment letter that went out, and we did submit our own letter, which really focused on population, because some of the compliance is based on per capita. And as you know, our full-time population does not represent our actual population. And so we're working hard to ensure that gets captured correctly. And then upcoming, just to keep it in front of people, CMUA's annual meeting and NCPA's Federal Policy Conference are happening, and staff will be attending those. And that's an opportunity, again, to represent the interests of the district, work with our partners, and continue to network and build relationships with sister utilities, policymakers, and influencers. Thank you.
Excuse me, I have one additional update. Wanted to give just a quick update on the district's participation and role in the River Revitalization Steering Committee group. The district was asked to participate in this committee as one of the local public agency representatives and a landowner in the community. So the PUD, TTSA, the airport, and the town are some of the public agencies represented in this committee. I promised the team on the committee that I would present this here at the district because there's a couple of dates or opportunities for the community, our ratepayers. If you're interested in being engaged and part of this revitalization effort, you can participate in some open house discussions coming up here in the next month or so. But just for a quick background, I know we have a pretty robust agenda this evening, so I'll go quickly. But you know, the river and its health and its kind of the engagement, community-wise engagement with the river has been, you know, a goal, a project, a desire for many decades here in Truckee, and it was part of the 2005 town strategic plan. It was included again in this most updated one in 2025.
A little louder.
I think,
My hearing
Is that better?
Too tonight. I don't know where my head's been. Is my head on?
and so it was, this, you can hear better. Okay, apologize for that. So it was also included in the 2025 general plan with the town. This, you know, this last couple of years, some new developments have occurred along the river. The West River Street development, Legacy Trail Phase 4, the streetscape, the park, and some other revitalization efforts along that corridor. The new adopted 2040 general plan includes goals along this pathway, And then recently, there's an effort and a desire to create some incentivizing that revitalization. There's been a shift from back in 2005, the discussions being relocation, but now really focusing on revitalization. And that's what the committee's been offered as our our goals and guidelines for planning and development there. So they identified the need to set a committee that representing the district. I was asked to join that committee really as a public agency and a landowner. There's 19 members on that committee representing different interests and walks of life. The town recently solicited residents to be a part of that committee, additional voice there, but you can see an overview of who's on that committee. Through the initial discussions and think tank process of the strategic planning, there's a couple of key concepts that came up. 5 things we love about the Truckee River: the beauty and the views, nature and a healthy river, housing and quote unquote Truckee funkiness, the eclectic nature of downtown Truckee, access to the river, recreation, river as a connector to town and the Legacy Trail, spending time with family and friends along the river, revitalized areas with sidewalks and outdoor spaces, bike lanes. Some of the things that the committee was looking to improve is some of the industrial and commercial space that's used along that river for equipment storage, some of the the old legacy buildings along that corridor, ones that's relevant for us here. The overhead power lines came up, and interesting, I've heard within that committee both points of view that the power lines actually add to the historic feel of Truckee versus the undergrounding and the modernization. So it's interesting that discussion. Road alignments, storage buildings and yards, environmental degradation, need for more sidewalks, like some of those tight areas along that corridor, and then looking for opportunity sites throughout the community. They broke it into 3 different themes: river health and access. That's really about the health and stewardship of the watershed and that river corridor. Community vitality, the business sector, and beauty and views, that recreational engagement and quality of life component that the river offers. Same 3 pillars there with some of the specific components. Recently, the steering committee assembled a couple of action teams for early on to achieve some goals: the River Health and Access Action Team, the Community Vitality Action Team, and then a couple of future action teams in terms of receiver site input and design studies for that West River and River Street corridor. The new concept that they're promoting, there's a recent press release, and on the town website you can see this information, but the Energize the Effort, really looking for more community input and feedback, not just the 18 members of the committee and the agencies they represent, but the entire community. And so there's a call for participation and input through a couple of scheduled engagements that are coming up here over the next month. And I'll skip this page here. It's outlines them a little bit, but just wanted to bring attention to Thursday, April 11th, the Coffee Talk at Wild Cherries, 10 a.m. to 12. Thursday, April 18th, a Taco Talk at the Lyft Workspace. This is going to have a taco truck type thing, buffet. If you participate and go through this open house engagement, you get some tacos there. Coffee Talk at the Cornerstone Bakery on April 22nd. April 27th, in-person open house at the Northern Trailhead at the East River Street, right there where the Legacy Trail is, so you can on-site engagement there. And then May 2nd, another Taco Talk at the Donner Creek Mobile Home Park. We'll have opportunity for Spanish-speaking engagement as well. So all this information is on the town of Truckee. I promised that Jen Calloway, I've promised the steering committee that I would bring it to our board meeting so that we have broader outreach to our ratepayers in the community there. I think it's really important, regardless of your perspective or point of view or feelings about this project, to participate at one of these events so that everyone's voices are heard. And I'll stop there.
All right. Thank you very much, directors. I always find your updates extremely valuable and interesting, so I appreciate that. Moving on, we have a public hearing this evening. So I will open the public hearing. It's related to the adoption of our annual electric and water standby charges. And we have Director Salmon.
All right. Thank you, Vice President Finn, members of the board. This is a public hearing, item 8 on the agenda this evening, consideration of adoption of the annual electric and water standby charges. Mike Salmon, Chief Financial Officer here at the district. Each year, the board is required to adopt resolutions continuing electric and water standby charges. Resolutions also authorize Nevada and Placer counties to collect the charges on the annual property tax bills. Standby charges have been assessed on vacant parcels since 1975. They recoup districts' operating and maintenance cost on vacant parcels. For parcel owners who benefit from the vacant lot being in close proximity to the distribution facilities of electric and water. Electric standby charge is $20 per year for each parcel 1 acre or larger, $10 per year for parcels less than 1 acre. Water standby charge is $80 per year regardless of parcel size. This public hearing was set at the March 6, 2024 regular board meeting and advertised two different times in the Sierra Sun local paper. The district standby rates have not changed in many years. There are no changes proposed for this upcoming year. Fiscal impact for Nevada County, there's about 1,560 parcels approximately for just over $100,000, and just over 2,000 in Placer County through 60 parcels for a total of $111,400 estimated. This is essentially the budget. Over the next few months, we do these specific parcels. We assess from last year's parcels. We adjust for parcels that have developed and fine tune it from there before we give the information to the counties. So the recommendation this evening is 2 parts. A, to conduct a public hearing to accept comments on establishing electric and water standby charges. And item B, adopt the following resolutions. Resolution 2024-05, continuing and fixing water standby charges for the fiscal year 2024-2025. Resolution 2024-06, continuing and fixing electric standby charges for the fiscal year 2024-2025. Resolution 2024-07, fixing and placing electric and water standby charges on County of Placer tax roll for collection. Resolution 2024-08, requesting collection of electric and water standby charges on Nevada County tax roll. With that, I turn it over to Vice President Finn.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Do we have any public comment? I already opened it.
Yeah.
I did. That's what I started with.
Yes, you did. You-
I opened it. It's open.
It's that part, sorry.
Good.
Just
But do we-
double checking.
Well, thank you, actually. We do want to be legal. It's a goal. Do we have any public comments on this item this evening in our public hearing? Seeing none, I can close the hearing. The hearing is now closed. Moving on to adopting our resolutions. Do we have any director questions or comments?
I have one question. Is there any exception to the standby charge for a vacant parcel, or if it's vacant, it gets the standby charge?
There are some exceptions on the water side for, I don't believe that we have implemented, because of the timing, how long these have been in place, for Glenshire water customers. because we acquired that system after we had the charges in place. And the cost benefit there to start charging those on those parcels would probably negate any benefit that was obtained based on the $80 charge. I believe there's an exception for public agencies that own a vacant parcel. Those are the only two I'm aware of.
Okay.
I don't know if you're on or not.
Can you hear me okay? Joe, can you hear me?
Yeah. Just talk into the mic.
Can you hear me okay now, Joe?
Pardon?
Can you hear me? Now.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
There you go.
Sorry about that. So as Mike indicated, if we wanted to increase any of these charges or impose them on new territory such as Glenshire, then we'd have to comply with Prop 218, and it's not like a water rate. It is an assessment that requires an engineer's report and study, and then a weighted property owner protest process, weighted by the value of the property. So I think Mike alluded to the fact that if we were to go through that process, hire an engineer, have a study done, and then have that protest process, it likely might outweigh the benefit of additional revenues.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Very good.
And just for clarity, that is moving approval of all four resolutions, 2024, 05, 06, 07, 08, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
That's my understanding as well. Could we get a roll call vote, please?
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Laliotis?
Yes.
Vice President Finn?
Yes.
And the record will note Director Harris and President Bender are absent.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Michael, there were no raises then? Okay.
Correct.
We just,
Do you have the rates there on the lots? Was it still $75 or something?
not even.
Yes, it's, so $20, depending on the parcel size, $10 or $20 for electric and $80 for water.
And wait a minute, what did you say? $20 for?
$10 for most electric standby charge customers. If it's over an acre, it would be $20 for electric,
Oh, okay.
and then $80 for an electric, or sorry, for a water.
So the total on that lot would be what?
$90 or $100, if they,
Oh, okay.
depending on,
Okay, I didn't.
assuming they didn't have
I
either.
remember a couple of years ago.
Yep.
It started out at 75, and now we're at about 90 then. Okay. Because I pay that. I have a lot downtown next to the mortuary.
Well, keep it up to date, Joe. Thank you. So keep it up to date. Okay, then we're moving forward with the consent calendar. We have a honkin' consent calendar tonight. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar? None online? Seeing none. Do we have any director questions or anything a director needs to pull on consent?
No, I didn't have anything. This looks like, is this barcoding a new thing that we just?
think
Yeah,
so.
okay, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. Anything
No?
from,
I'll
in which case?
I'll move the consent calendar.
Second,
Can we get a roll call vote, please? I have a,
Director Aguirre?
yes.
Director Laliotis?
Yes.
Vice President Finn?
yes.
Record will note Director Harris and President Bender are absent.
Very good. Which brings us, to action items, starting with item number 15, considering approval of the district's integrated resource plan. And we have Director Carpenter to give us a presentation.
Okay. Good evening, Vice President Finn, members of the board, members of the community. My name is Jared Carpenter, and I'm going to be presenting a review of the IRP that we discussed in the February board meeting. So for review, in 2023, the district started its first ever integrated resources plan, an IRP, with the help of Aspen Environmental Group and Flynn RCI. The goal of the IRP was to provide low, medium, high forecasts of our load consumptions out to 2040, a recommended balanced portfolio to focus on the generation resources and energy efficiency goals and financial considerations to meet those load forecasts. Obviously has a heavy focus on RPS and GHG, so Renewable Portfolio Standard, and greenhouse gas regulations that are required here in California as a utility. And that IRP was then presented to the board at the February board meeting. And also, clearly the IRP is designed to change over time, but this is kind of meant to be a guardrail or kind of a path to help us get to where we're trying to get to, meeting all regulations and designs of power supply. So just to kind of review some of the highlights there, basically those are the low, medium, high goals. So our all-time peak of power happened in 2022 at about 36 megawatts. And as you see there, basically it's saying at low, medium, high, it would be somewhere between 43.8 and 52 megawatts. I'll tell you now, we're already trending more towards the higher end than lower end. So I would focus more on the medium and high right now when you look at the low at this point in time with the development stuff coming into Truckee right now. But that was the load forecast for us to plan for. The load modifiers that are in that can be explained simply as the orange line, the biggest one up top there. That's kind of how the forecast for public station EV charging. The blue line is residential EV charging. And again, those are years in the bottom going out to 2040, from Jan 2022 out to 2040. Then you see a gray line below that kind of squiggles up and down a bit. That's how we're accounting for residential photovoltaic solar production on people's homes. The commercial one is yellow for solar, which basically is saying there's very little planned. Just Truckee isn't a big place for solar on commercial buildings right now. Just to be clear too, on the gray one for residential, you see how it goes up and down. It's because seasonally, some winter time doesn't put out much solar. So it's accounting for that as well. The blue line below that is energy efficiency, kind of showing the targets and goals that we need to be hitting and should be hitting through our programs. And the last one is electrification, which should in order. The purple line in the middle there going up in the positive direction, that's the plan for electrification that we should plan for. Homes adding heat pumps, converting from natural gas to electric heat pumps, adding induction stoves, just all the things that electrification means. That's what we should plan for. If you took our average load growth per year of, call it, 2.5% of load growth and added these factors in, that's how they get to the low, medium, and high. This is the recommended resource portfolio that they're recommending. Some of these resources here, so what you see on the left there, are the different generation sources, different power plants for us to look into. Some of those we already have, some are under contracts, and some are ones we own parts of. So you see quite the variety there of wind, solar, there's even the nuclear one in there, but you see we put the carbon-free power project, but we put a start year of 2099 because it kind of fell apart there, but we want to make sure we called it out that this was actually analyzed as part of this whole situation. So you see some of the things that we're shopping for and looking for and trying to find. This is a great representation of your compliance with greenhouse gas and RPS. The one up top is RPS, again, that's Renewable Portfolio Standard, and the one below is the GHG requirements of a utility. So basically the blue line in the middle on the top one shows that's where you need to be to comply with law. And the dotted blue line above that is where we think we'll be, especially following this IRP. So we're always staying above it. We're doing quite well there, frankly. Below, the red one, the red line for the GHG, first of all, the GHG rules for utilities, they don't really kick in as heavy until around 2031. So utilities are preparing now, buying things now to make sure you can comply with those laws. Utility world, you can't do it, comply this year, and it doesn't work that way. You're complying years in advance in preparation, developing projects to ensure you do comply down the road. So you see there, the red dotted line is kind of how we're forecasting our future out to 2040, and it does stay above it. You do see it gets close certain years. That can be a contract ending. It can be a generator coming online around then. It's like a wind farm come online and help our portfolio. So you see kind of how it works all together. But there's the general plan of how we would comply with GHG and RPS. For financial considerations, this is another great way that Aspen explained in a really simplified, a very complicated thing down to saying, look, if you follow the balanced portfolio, you're looking at a net present value of $201 million. So is that the cheapest option out there? Well, no. You look down a couple, you see no storage, no battery storage, but lots and lots of geothermal. Well, that would actually be cheaper, $192 million net present value. That's great, if it's available, which, yeah, we're going to look for it, but they're not really that available. We are looking for some, just not a high amount. We're looking for as much as we can, but it'll be a medium or low amount. It's a function of how long it takes to build geothermal. So all in all, the balanced portfolio is something that is very green, meets the regulations, and financially is the best option. I will point out in the second one, if it looks at as kind of an opposite example, let's say we didn't try to generate new projects. We just kind of ran the markets, stayed with the markets, didn't try to think too far ahead, played it safe, so to speak. That would cost us an additional near $30 million in net present value. So playing it safe can be very expensive if you get it wrong. So to kind of do a quick review of that, again, you're looking at that average load growth and adding in those modifiers, you get an idea of how much we're growing per year forecasting, a lot of it due to electrification and electric vehicles. We will continue to be a winter peaking utility. We absolutely see trends of rising in the kind of the July and around the holiday months. We absolutely see it, but we still see the December and Januaries will push us as our main peaking time of year. So we definitely need to, the report clearly shows that we need to continue to invest in energy efficiency, but we might need to look for new programs to assure that electrified load is efficient. So as those loads come on, we got to make sure we're helping our customers put the most efficient systems in their homes and businesses possible. Whatever we can do to help that, we have to take that very seriously or we'll have a larger problem past that 52 megawatt goal or outlook. The district is resource adequate in the short term, so we're fine in the short term, but longer, not so much. So that's why we have to keep looking for new resources, keep developing them, keep building them. And one thing there that's a complicated one is while we're looking for new resources, so is everybody else. And it's not just utilities, it's big companies and corporations that want to buy power in the wholesale markets. Some of them are allowed to do that, and they absolutely do it to save money. So there is competition today that 10 years ago I wouldn't even envisioned. The folks that I'm going up to power and doing bids now, and some of them I'm shocked who shows up at the bids and the walkthroughs through a hydro plant, and they want to buy power too from there. I'm like, who are you? And you work for where? So it's pretty surprising, frankly. So the recommended portfolio, it does achieve the goals, and one of the key one there, the key one in the first bullet mentioning resource adequacy. What that means is, as a utility, you have to have a certain amount of resources, generation resources, to comply with rules, or you kind of pay fines or penalties to buy in. This one allows us to comply with that. I will mention, just make sure this is being called out well. Resource adequacy, RA. Is one of the more complicated things that are happening in the West, especially in California. It can be more costly than the megawatt hours, all the energy everyone's used to. This thing can really hit you hard if you're not investing in them. This is why everyone wants things like small hydro. They want the wind farms. This is what everyone's looking for. It's a big competition. That is a huge driver of that competition. So.
It's all the green power.
It's all the green power because that's the most cost-effective power plants that developers can build. They will make more money by building those power plants, and that's what they're building.
Yeah, but all windmills and the wind and everything else, they're all green.
Mhm.
Looking for the green power,
Absolutely.
the resources.
Yes. Yep. Yep. A lot of that too is, of course, too, that this most strict RA rules in the nation are in California for California utilities, kind of obviously, but that is the case. So, but it is complicated to build them here in California. So, but that's why they take time. But that's the RA. The other one you might hear down the road is called RAP. But the RAP, the WRAP. There's more and more of these things coming. We'll do our best to keep them light because they change so quickly. But welcome to the world of power supply. Where was I? Yes. So the third bullet there, this will supplement the district's existing resource with a diverse mix of geothermal, and also solar plus storage. So we are very actively looking at multiple geothermal projects right now. That's why we're saying if we look at everyone that's available and we win everyone that's out there, it still wouldn't be the high end. So we gotta be realistic here. But that's why focusing on things like storage and adding solar to our grid and combining solar and storage is a key priority. It's to help comply with the IRP and make sure you don't spend an extra $30 million by not doing it. So it's a careful balance in there. But you've seen those projects we're bringing in. This is why we're bringing them in and working on them. So, and again, the last bullet, just to be very clear with this sort of thing, this is a growing, changing document over time. It's a great guideline. It kind of gets us all on the same page. But of course, we're going to have to modify it over time when we win, lose contracts. It is what it is. It's fine. So we'll be constantly changing this and bringing certain projects. And why we're bringing this kind of project? Because it meets the IRP to meet those very long-term goals that some of them, you may not see them until 2035 or 2040, but we're starting them now. So there is no financial impact, there's no fiscal impact with adopting this, approving this plan as it's written now. So what we're looking for, our recommendation, is to provide feedback and direction to staff for this IRP and approve the district's integrated resources plan as proposed.
All right. Thank you very much, Jared. Do we have any public comment on this item tonight? Please.
Is this on? Yes. Okay. For the record, my name is Deirdre Henderson. I live here in Truckee, and I am one of the co-leads of 100% Renewable Truckee. We formed 100% Renewable Truckee back in 2017 to ask the town of Truckee to adopt a 100% renewable resolution, which it did in November of 2017. And shortly thereafter, we began engaging with the Public Utility District. And one of the things that we learned when we did that is that there was no integrated resource plan for the PUD. It wasn't required to have one. We were kind of perplexed about why it wouldn't want to have one, given the incredible challenges and dynamism of the utility industry these days and of utility and of energy markets. So I would like to thank the board and the staff for doing the PUD's first integrated resource plan. I think this is a great step forward. I think it's a great educational document and something that we are really looking forward to living with for the next several years. I will just say that as I wasn't able to come to your February 7th meeting, but I did look at the video of it and the presentation that was made by Aspen. I've looked through the integrated resource plan. I wasn't quite sure whether there was a consideration of the effect of distributed energy resources and virtual power plants. I know there was a little bit of discussion in it with respect to behind-the-meter resources. Wasn't sure where that came out, so I'm not sure where that fits in, if it does at all, into the integrated resource plan. So I'd love some clarification on that. But again, I want to thank you for doing something that I think is really very much in the community's interest.
Thank you, Deirdre. Can I sort of throw that at you a little bit, Jared? I mean, I do believe that distributed resources will play a role and behind-the-meter programs, but let's.
Sure. So yes, they are in there, where you'd see them as a graphic. So all the orange lines there, let's start the chart. So the residential solar would be the gray line going up and down. So that's behind the meter, and that's residential solar. So that's there, and the plan to have it growing means we have to keep supporting it growing as a utility. Some utilities, they do see behind the meter solar to be a bit of a challenge for how their grid operates, and they do try to slow it down, a lot of regulations. There's sometimes good reason for that, but that's not our plan. Our plan is to help it grow. What you don't see in this graph would be any like district-owned, so not even a commercial, like a district-owned solar array, for example. But in this one here, for the recommended resource portfolio, the one that is being recommended, what's being put in here is you do see solar arrays in here that we would have to take the lead on getting installed with partners and whatnot, sure, but it's not just residential. So that would be behind the transmission level meter, but in front of anyone's house meter, so the in-between of a utility DER, so distributed energy resource. So yes, they are in there. For storage, which I do look at as part of this too, that's a project that is ongoing right now, and we are working on it right now. It's being engineered, and we still have a hope to have a battery installed at one of our substations. We're hoping for 2026. That's a goal. And again, I really hope nothing slows that down or hurts it, but we are very actively working on that right now. So more to come on that one in the very near future.
Thank you. I'll open it up to director's discussion. Any questions, comments?
I'll go ahead. So, just, Deirdre, thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. This is a very robust plan and a very complex plan, but it's a good plan. But then again, it is only a plan. So I guess my question for staff is, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces. I imagine as we start implementing things, you'll be coming back to the board with this project or that project. But I guess, does staff have a plan to sort of annually or whatever frequency you deem necessary, sort of bring this all together and sort of see how we're tracking, see how we're doing? So that, number one, just the board kind of gets that summary, but more importantly, the community gets that summary.
Yes, so we might create some new ways of doing that, but the one that we'll go into next tonight is our purchase power review, which we've done for the past number of years here to the board. And in there, you will see some of what we did the previous year, and something's literally happening right now. We probably need to create something to do a little more of a look ahead as well, which we don't really have right now. Brian, you might.
Yeah, so as Jared's mentioning, our annual purchase power review is kind of rear view looking, what the district experienced in the previous year. What the IRP doesn't mean the district hasn't historically had, that famous meatloaf graph of what our purchase power agreements look like in the upcoming years. But with the IRP, now we've incorporated all of the other kind of resource pressures and restraints that we anticipate in the coming years. And so staff's going to bring back to the board on at least an annual basis, a forward-looking, not a purchase power review, but a purchase power forecast in alignment in accordance with the plan that we're approving this evening. And so what Jared's creating is an additional graphic for us, provided this is adopted tonight, or not adopted, approved tonight, additional graphic that we'll be using to replace kind of the meatloaf concept, but it gives us guardrails, so to speak, and targets of what we need to purchase in the future. One, to maintain our affordable prices. Two, to make sure we're meeting regulatory compliance and our own greenhouse gas or carbon reduction goals. So it's all kind of coming in a mix at once, and it'll be the roadmap looking forward, just as you pointed.
Great, thank you.
As far as feedback, you're in the driver's seat, and we're here listening to you, and you give us the information. I think you're doing what we would probably ask you, our feedback, you know, what you're doing now. Because I know you're working on all those aspects. So you always have been. I mean, and so keep up the good work is what I say. And you're, like I say, you're in the driver's seat, and you know you're on the money. I mean, you're there every day.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Jared.
Joe. I don't have a lot of questions because we did have an in-depth meeting in February where we really discussed this. You know, my concerns looking forward is, you know, how likely are we to be able to procure these resources that our plan is laying out? I'm encouraged. I know there was a large federal investment in geothermal that just came down the pipe like yesterday. So it's in the $40 billion range, I think, to develop. So I know we're keeping our eyes out and we're going to do our best to, I think that's our biggest role as a community-driven PUD, is to put our heft behind development of renewable options, of good, solid, baseload, renewable things. So whether or not we actually land the contract, of course, we want to do so, but just encouraging more and more by being the market for it, I think is a net positive, obviously. I think it is really important that we maintain our focus on our rates as well. And as you pointed out, renewable energy is right now the least expensive energy that we can buy. So you know, every now and then, the interwebs interferes with my life, and I read grumbling about the cost of electricity locally. I'm fairly confident that most of those folks are Liberty Energy customers, but it is something, it's really, really important for us to bring everybody with us on this journey. We want to be an example of how making these investments and focusing on sustainability and renewable energy also brings with it reliability and rates that are affordable. So I can't stress enough how important it is to bring the whole community along with us. And rates is a big part of that. So I think this plan is going to be, I think it was vital for us to have done it. I'm looking forward to its implementation and seeing how it unfolds over the next couple of years. You know, we all know that a plan is just that. It's a plan, it's flexible, it's changeable. As Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you're punched in the face, but we have another plan for after that. So we may get punched in the face, but we're going to get up and we're going to keep moving forward. So thank you very much for your presentation, helping us understand this as a community. I particularly enjoyed the appendix at the end that went through all the acronyms because it is just amazing. I think I'm going to print it out and keep it with me so that I can remind myself of what WRAP and WPRA and WAPA all are. So those are, I think, my comments. My writing is so bad I can't read it. So I will settle for that for now. So we have a motion to approve the plan? We do. Okay. Do we have a motion?
Go ahead, Karen. I'll second it, that's all right.
I will move staff's recommendation to approve the district's integrated resource plan as proposed.
I'll second the motion.
Very good. Thank you
I
both.
should have just moved it. Poor
That's
Tony.
Poor Tony. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Laliotis?
Yes.
Vice President Finn.
Yes.
The record will note Director Harris and President Binder are absent.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Didn't we miss 13 and 14?
They were part of the consent,
They were what?
part of the consent calendar.
Oh, that's the, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
so we
sorry.
did, we got it.
Yeah.
we got it.
No, I just jumped down to the action items. That's right.
Excusable. We all jumped down to the action items.
3 times, those two items.
That we did get it, we approved them. Okay, which brings us to action item number 16, considering review of the district's purchase power plan for fiscal year '23. Now, no change of presenter.
I'm back. Okay, so this is our purchase power review. This is something that has come to the board a couple times the past few years. And again, it's sort of looking at 2023, giving a little bit of an update of how things went. So it's kind of some background and some obvious reminders, but for folks that maybe are in the community and weren't fully aware of these things. So 2022, the end of 2022 and early 2023 was a very volatile year. So things that caused this were, there was a war in Ukraine that really hurt the energy and gas prices. When gas prices go up, everything goes up for energy prices. They all work very much hand in hand. In fact, I'll take a quick pause and explain one thing how much that really affects. So like that bridge collapse in Baltimore, it blocks the harbor a little bit. That's a major port for moving cars in and out. So that's going to do some car price things. It's also a major port for moving coal in and out. That's going to change all the prices for energy instantaneously within moments. So it's a very sensitive business. They're all intertwined. So that's how sensitive it really is. So the war in Ukraine was a major event that's still ongoing. It's done a lot to the energy markets. There was a significant gas shortage issue in America. It's still being investigated. I'm still waiting to hear some resolutions as to what came out of it and how that was even possible. It makes very little sense in many ways. There was a huge cold storm going through Texas that was extended, and there was a big heat stroke in end of 2022 that came through the western United States that lingered longer and was wider spread, which also does eat into your storage a little bit. So there is some synergies there, but still not enough. Point being, there's just a lot of things that happened at that point in time that really changed market prices. And the more you're exposed to the market prices, the worse you're going to be. In the case of the district, we were about 26% exposed in December and about 47% exposed in January. Part of the exposure was due to our solar panels for the Red Mesa project. We're locked up not locked up's the wrong word, stuck in a port in Southern California, along with many other solar projects, because there was a interest in the federal government on potential spyware in the inverters. So they had to delay those a little bit. So this happened to a lot of places, and so it delayed projects. These things happen. Lightning strike hits a wind turbine blade, showing a last meeting there. It affects things. Where's the next blade coming from? If it's far away it can take a while for it to get there. Complex business, but that was where we had some exposure and therefore some financial exposure. But we had reserves. We had a plan for this. And we used those reserves, and it worked, did exactly what it was supposed to do. Things were fine. But in the review, let's look at how it was and look at the goods and the bads. So prices did settle through the rest of the year. We did make a few process changes internally and some different things. The Red Mesa solar array did come online in March, so that did reduce our exposure. So prices did settle, and things worked out okay, more or less. The overall review there, what it really comes down to is being over budget by $562,000. One thing I want to, that's not an enormous amount, but one thing I want to point out there is you see that, how it points out that the energy consumption, the forecast, we were only off by 0.5% forecasting energy a couple years in advance. So the IRP forecasting out 2040, partly we're trying to be better than 0.5%. Let's see if we can do it and looking even further ahead, but that's what we're trying to forecast better and buy just the right amount of energy to fit that. But the power cost was off by 3.5% because of that volatility I just mentioned. So there you see your big swing there. Small numbers, but it makes a big difference financially. The overall power supply of one thing for me, I always like to look at a couple of years at a time. Now it's just the 1 year, so I'm looking at 22 a little bit and 2023. It's just easier for me to visualize things when I'm looking more than 1 year at a time. So one difference between 2022 and 2023 is, again, that Red Mesa solar project came online. So if you see here on the graph, my chart here, the 2023 usage for Red Mesa has 13,270 megawatt hours, but nothing in 2022 or 2021 because it wasn't online. So the rest of them there, you kind of see where our power supply was coming from the other sources. Graphing this out, going back to 2021, looking at the actual versus budget, that big spike of blue, which is the actual versus the budget, it sure catches everybody off guard when you see that come online there, and that hit us on dollar values on the y-axis. Basically, again, just that November, definitely December, definitely January, a little bit of February, that was volatile. That's what caused that big issue. But the visual, you can kind of really see it plain and clear. And usually we're quite well close to the forecast, to the budget. And if you look at the rest of 2023, overall, that blue line, the actual, is a bit lower than the orange line, the budget. So that's kind of why it could have been far worse, put it that way. But we were able to make some changes and resolve some things. Related to the renewable portfolio standard, so how green were we? So basically, right now, when you're buying power from all those power plants I showed earlier, and there's even more than what's on there, but those are the primary ones, there's a large paperwork being done now where we're reconciling what was green and not green. So we don't have, and renewable, not renewable, every category of it, we don't have the final numbers, and we won't for a few more months before we have to report it and come back to the board and report that, as we do every year, as every utility has to by law. So we don't actually have the exact numbers right now, but if I were to estimate right now, I would say for 2023, we're talking about 51% from eligible renewable energy, and then another 13% of other renewable energy too. So somewhere in the realm of saying 64% green in 2023. Due to the volatility we had there, that's actually really good, quite impressive. But the thing that I'm most excited by is you look backwards in time from 2020 through 2023, and some of those I'm counting too because we're in RPS period 4. This is the period that we're trying to make sure we achieve regulatory compliancy, that RPS. We were doing well, we trended down a little bit, but now we're trending back up again for more renewable energy. So let's keep that goal going forward, and hopefully we get that up higher in 2024. The cap and trade market, that's where we're allocated credits as a utility, and we take those credits and we don't need to offset them. If we had a coal plant, we could offset some of the usage with that, but we don't have that, so we get to take those credits and sell them on the market. So this is small, and I'm sure you can't read it from there, but all I want to make sure that you can see is the cap and trade market is trending down. You can argue that's for better and for worse. It means it's working. It doesn't really matter to me exactly. We keep using it, and we keep using that money to help augment the cost of renewable energy purchases. So that's how we use it. It's how many utilities use it. So, but it is trending down. But still, we did walk out with generating about $400,000 in 2023 versus $500 in 2022, and almost $850 in 2021. So for the purchase power review, kind of giving a quick snapshot of all of it, sort of. Basically, in 2022, our actual versus budget, we were 22% over. If you look at the overall energy cost, so down here in the kind of bottom there, you're talking about, we are budgeting power cost to be about $80, and it came in at $96. In 2023, we budgeted $81, and it coming at $84. So only being off by 3.5% of our energy cost, not bad. Like I said, that it equaled out over the year when you saw the big spikes in the beginning, but lower as we went along. So not bad. The 22% over is definitely concerning. So hopefully we never see that ever again, and we'll do our best to be aware of that and try to avoid it again as best we can. So fiscal impact, there is no fiscal impact to the current budget by reviewing and providing input to the 2023 power purchase, our power purchases or our energy consumption. So for recommendation, we're looking to provide input to staff on the district's actual versus budgeted purchase power cost and energy consumption for FY '23.
All right, thank you again for all the information. Do we have any public comments on our power purchase review? Seeing none. Do we have any director comments or questions for Jared? No, it's not, same
I
topic.
should have on the last issue.
Very valid.
You're still in the driver's seat, you're the one that's in the know, you know?
In the know.
I wish we had, I was an undertaker now. So I didn't learn too much about the politics and the electrical.
A lot of this is
Industry.
new for everybody, even the people in the industry.
More about the electrical industry when I was choosing a
Career.
career. Thank you, Jared.
Tony?
So is it accurate to say that most of the overage was sort of the residual from that late 2022, early 2023 spike?
Yeah, it is.
And then just curiosity, you probably already said it in another meeting, but why did we not have any large hydro last year?
That's a really good question. So, it's a complex answer, actually. So we do have hydro. Large hydro is above 30 megawatts, small hydro is below 30 megawatts. If you have a hydro generator that can do 32 megawatts, but it only puts out 28 megawatts, it becomes a small hydro, not a large hydro. So it actually, some years we can have small hydro and large hydro, and it can change by the hour. Complexities of the business, that's why some of those ensuring which one has a certificate to be renewable or not, which one to be large hydro versus small hydro, large is not renewable, small is. You literally need to go through every hour and see how much power it put out for every single hour of the year, and then compare it to see and have a certificate that's retired and assigned and approved and accepted and adopted, and that happens for every generator. It's a lot of work. So, but why do we have any large hydro? So, some large hydro, due to our location, there's not much large hydro for us here, and there isn't a lot of large hydro in Nevada, where a lot of power is coming from on the transmission side. So the large hydro we have some ownership over, WAPA, the WAPA, the WAPA there, is on the other side in California. Mm-hmm. But as it stands now, it's stranded from us. We can't quite get it to our doorstep without paying an extremely high cost. We need to pay all the transmission fees of Nevada and all the transmission fees of California and some other little special fees I won't even get into right now. But there are these complexities of the market that are very hard to keep up with, and confuse me half the time. There are new alternatives, new options coming alive now, where we might be able to get our large hydro into our grid, and we're working hard on that. I'll leave it at that because it gets into a long story after that. But basically, the large hydro we have access to, it isn't hitting our grid because it's not connected to our grid.
Is our only large hydro Stampede, or do we have access to other large hydro projects?
Stampede is small hydro.
Stampede's small, okay.
Yeah, and it's also a very unique one.
Yeah, and maybe just kind of a historical reference, our Stampede rates were driven off the larger hydro indexes in the Pacific Northwest, so that kind of historically, that might be the reference people have in their memory, but what Stampede is a small hydro project.
Got it. Perfect, thank you.
Stampede is what, it's low, isn't it 3% or 5%? Something like that?
Yes, it's a pretty small percentage of our portfolio. It could be anywhere from, call it 3 to 7%, depends how it works that year.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So the second part of the recommendation is to or is to provide input to staff on the actual versus budgeted purchase power. What are you looking from us for you guys tonight?
I actually don't know.
What's that?
I'm not sure.
Just, so,
Chat, we're just chatting.
honesty is the best policy. In district code, staff is required to provide this report each year so that the board has a understanding and has an opportunity to examine the performance of our energy procurement plans in the previous calendar year. And so we're just looking for feedback, any comments, anything that you need additional information for in the future. It kind of, this year, comes on the coattails of the IRP. So a lot of the questions you may have had in a traditional presentation of this item, we've already addressed, or that we have a plan in place to act on. So this evening, feedback, if there's none, that's also a perfectly acceptable feedback.
Well, I think, yeah, so I guess my point, or what I was getting at was last year, we made some recommendations on how to deal with the overage in
Yes.
relation to the rate reserve, and then a process of how to perhaps replenish that.
Yes, could you remind us of that acronym for the?
Oh, the PCA, the
That's
power
the
cost
one.
adjustment, yes.
Yes.
The power cost
Yes.
adjustment.
Was this overage in '23 factored into those decisions, or is this going to be a large enough number that we also need to kind of weave it into another adjustment?
So, if I understand your question correctly, the rates we proposed a couple months ago, they factor in everything we know of going back this last year and going forward a couple more years. There's about 5 years in that recommendation there. So there were the larger increases of the 12 and 12%, and then we have a very high goal and ambition and work to say, let's try to bring that back down while still enhancing our RPS. Some of the ways you can do that, that we're working on very heavily, is things like the Horse Butte Phase 2 of the wind farm. Phase 1's a good price, and it's great. Phase 2 is a cheaper price because the transformers are already built. But to get those things built, there's even regulatory things that have to happen. So some of those trips to Utah that I have to do and working on those and that stuff, that's helping get that thing advanced, because that'll be green and inexpensive power that will look great in our portfolio that we've already planned for and is in our IRP. So while looking for new generation sources too right now. So yes, it factors in last year, next couple of years, with the goal of keeping our trending up in our renewables and green power and keeping our costs controlled.
No, I was just wanting to make sure that the $500,000 overage, we're prepared for it. We don't have to make any bigger decisions like we did last year, where it was like we were like $3 million or something like that over. So just want to make sure that, understand if something's going to be brought back to the board on how to deal with that $500,000 overage or not, or if we've already dealt with it in some other fashion, or it's not a big enough number to really get too sideways on.
The one thing I'll point out there real quick is, on the good news, is we look at the power supply costs. I was pointing on our updates of our departments. Right now, February is cheaper and greener than it was in 2023 and 2022. So things look nice right now. Definitely got to keep working on that a lot, putting a lot of effort and focus on keeping it that way as best we can. And they won't always be that way, but right now we're trending that direction to feel quite comfortable.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I guess my feedback is along the same lines. It seems to me that using our IRP, for example, as a roadmap, diversifying our portfolio, pinning down power purchase agreements so we are more sheltered from that open market that we had to dip into back in late 2022. And I very much support your plan to bring our rates back down, in flying in the face of the fall decision that we just raised them, that we needed to, of course, but if we can deploy our new financial tool to return some of that money to the ratepayers, because we are able to sign on to long-term, inexpensive renewable power contracts, that would be quite exciting. We would pop some bubbles at some point. Thank you. And I think that's it. I don't think you need actually any action. We don't need a motion or anything like that. We can just say thank you very much for the information. We appreciate it. Okay. Whoa. Which brings us to item number 17. Action item, considering approval of a contract with GEI Consulting for Martis Valley GMP 5-year update. That would be the groundwater management plan. Yay. And Stephen.
Good evening, Vice President Finn, members of the board and public. This is action item 17. The district has a long history of stewardship, management, and scientific work in the Martis Valley groundwater basin. We collaboratively developed the Martis Valley Groundwater Management Plan, GMP, in 2013, and that was with North Star Community Services District and Placer County Water Agency. I think it's useful to go back a little bit and see how we got where we are today. So in 2013, PCWA, North Star Community Services District, and the PUD got together and we contributed $250,000 that was boosted by $250,000 that was available to the Desert Research Institute to do a groundwater model of the Martis Valley Basin and watershed. There was a $250,000 Bureau of Reclamation grant for DRI to overlay climate change through the end of the century on that work. And then there was another $250,000 for Lawrence Livermore Laboratories to do some radioisotope aging studies. And that was $1 million of investment that built the groundwater management plan and some significant science and tools that backed it up. What is a groundwater management plan? It's a multi-agency framework to ensure long-term quality and availability of water supply, and it reflects current water resource planning, and it's in alignment with groundwater policy. The overall statement for the GMP is ensuring long-term quality and availability of groundwater in the Martis Valley groundwater basin, and it had 6 basin management objectives that are up on the screen there. And under each of those are a series of actions that the water agencies committed to annually, periodically, and included a 5-year update. And, you know, we like them all, of course, and they're all very important. BMO 5, pursue and use the best available science and technology to inform the decision-making process, we think is very important. And then consider the environment and participate in stewardship of groundwater resource, also very important.
Steve, aren't we in with a couple of partners on this? Is this the one?
Yep.
Yeah, the Grass Valley irrigation and.
Yep, Placer County Water Agency and North Star Community Services District.
It hasn't mentioned that in there.
Great.
We're talking about we are kind of running the show there.
It's a collaborative effort. We all show up and we work together, and it's been effective.
Thank you.
In 2014, right as we were kind of implementing this first GMP, California passed the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, affectionately known as SGMA, and it replaced GMPs for medium and high priority basins, and the Martis Valley groundwater basin at the time was designated medium priority by the Department of Water Resources. So it kind of halted implementation of our GMP, and it led to another collaborative effort that included the 3 water agencies, but also there they are, but also included the entitlement agencies. And in the Martis Valley, that's Placer County, Nevada County, and the town of Truckee. So that collaborative effort led to the submittal in December of 16 to a alternative submittal And that was one of the opportunities for compliance with Sigma. And it certified that the basin had operated within its sustainable yield for a period of at least 10 years. And it actually showed that we had operated within sustainable yield for a period of 25 years. While that was being reviewed, Department of Water Resources is required to do basin prioritization every 5 years. And this time, the local water agencies really worked hard with DWR to ensure they had accurate information in that reprioritization. And as a result, we ended up reprioritized to very low, which is appropriate for, a basin that's well-managed and, has fairly rich water resources. So we were no longer subject to Sigma anymore. That's a large savings for our community. It's a very expensive regulation and compliance. So the local Sigma agencies withdrew the alternative submittal, and the 3 water agencies got together. And even though we weren't required, we thought the GMP was a good framework. We never got to implement it. So we voluntarily went back to the GMP framework in 2019. So they updated the GMP. We did at that time, and it documented some of the science I had talked about earlier and some of the changes that had happened. And it set the timetable for GMP annual reports and the actions listed under those basin management objectives. And it also set the clock for the 5-year update to 2024, which we'll get to soon. And we did the annual reports, and we had we came out of a drought as we started that, and then we had some dry years and some very wet years. And what we saw is the basin's well-managed, sustainable, and it does respond very quickly to precipitation, which is the dominant factor. So I want to talk about monitoring of groundwater levels in the basin, because that's really the tool that we use to see what's happening underground in the basin. We've monitored historically for 22 years, spring and fall, and that set some historic highs and lows. In 2017, the water agencies voluntarily went to monthly monitoring because there was a desire, it's better data, and there was a desire to understand a little more seasonally what happens at the driest time in a drought or what happens at the wettest time in a wet year. And so we've been doing that since 2017, and we're building a data set there. Not quite complete because you really need longer periods of times, but it's a great start. And again, basin is well managed and sustainable has been the conclusion of every annual report that we've put out. So next steps, we'll continue collaboration and work to watershed management, continue to monitor water levels and analyze them using, outside third-party experts, and then the GMP 5-year update in 2024, and here we are. So the district, in partnership with North Star CSD and PCWA, issued a request for proposal for the Martis Valley GMP 5-year update. It was released February 6th, proposals due March 14th, advertised in the Sierra Sun. We did notify interested local parties and active consultants. And as in the past, we split cost equally amongst the 3 water agencies. The scope of the work also included the 23 water year annual report, looking at the monitoring and doing the analysis of that. And the scope does include one stakeholder working group meeting, which we've been doing every year, but also one public meeting, since this is a 5-year update and we want to give the public an opportunity to engage. And our consultant, should we move forward, would be present at both of those meetings so the public has the opportunity to talk to the experts directly. The district received one proposal from GEI Consultants. They are our current consultant for the Martis Valley GMP annual reports. They have experience working in Martis Valley, and they did include a subcontractor, Balanced Hydrologics. They're a local hydrologic consultant firm who also has experience in Martis Valley. A scoring committee with one member from each GMP water agency was convened, and we reviewed the proposal. We determined it was most advantageous to award a contract to GEI Consultants, and North Star CSD and PCWA are taking steps for their approval for the funding as well. So you'll see that this award is contingent upon that funding being secured, and we have high high confidence that that'll happen. So the GEI Consultants proposal is for an amount not to exceed $104,000 and change. The GMP water agencies are recommending a 10% change order authorization, and again, equal cost share. And for the district's portion, it is included in the board-approved fiscal year '24 budget. Under the GL, I won't read it, but that's $8,000's in there for the annual reporting, and then the second GL, $40,000 for the GMP update, and it's less than that, so there's excess funds there. So the recommendation is to authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with GEI Consulting contingent upon approval of joint funding with North Star Community Services District and Placer County Water Agency for an amount of $104,119 plus a 10% change order authorization of $10,412 for a total not to exceed contract amount of $114,531. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Do we have any public comment or questions on this item? Seeing none, I will bring it to the board's conversation. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
No, that was a good report.
It was.
That's what I gotta say. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's what I can remember back in all these meetings we had.
Very good.
No, just, this has been such a great thing that we've been doing for years, and so I feel like it's kind of the gift that just keeps giving. I mean, it has so many good things. Number one is we don't have to do it, but we're electing to do it because it's the right thing to do. We have regional partners who also have the same mentality and doing the right thing and partnering with us. So I always feel good when we have this process come around, and that we are ensuring that we're protecting our resources and understanding our resources and making sure that we know what's happening to our resources, because everything is changing. So we need to keep up with it. But I appreciate staff's continued investment and dedication to this process, and keeping our partners engaged in this process. And thank you to our partners for staying engaged in this process. So,
Thank you, Tony. I agree with all of that. I appreciate that we put it out for a bid. It's always good to have fresh eyes. We only got one responsive, great, and I appreciate the fact that they brought on a subcontractor that's familiar with the area. As Tony pointed out, more data is better. You can make better decisions when you have more information. So I'm happy that we are continuing along this path and bringing in as many sets of eyes as possible on our amazing place and water that I love to drink so much. So
Steve, one more question. Oh, I'm sorry.
it's okay, no, please.
Under the town of Truckee, don't they pay costs like the other two or three?
The town of Truckee was involved in shared costs when we had SIGMA compliance, because under that regulation, the entitlement agencies were part of what they called the local SIGMA agencies. For groundwater management, that's been a water utility function, and so it's the water agencies that split the cost.
Kind of administrative on that committee.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, Nevada County didn't, oh yeah, the Placer County, well, Nevada County's not on there.
Yeah, again, that was for the Sigma compliance, but when we went back to the groundwater management plan, the GMP, it's just the 3 water agencies.
Thank you.
Right on. Thank you. And if we don't have any more,
I'll move staff's recommendation.
perfect. Do we have a second?
Yes, I have a second.
And we have a second. Can we get roll call, please?
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Laliotis?
Yes.
Vice President Finn?
Yes.
The record will note Director Harris and President Bender are absent.
Okay, very good. Our 18th action item, considering approval of an MOU among District, North Star Community Services District, Placer County Water Agency, and the Truckee River Watershed Council regarding the Martis Valley Groundwater Basin. So continuing on, part 2.
Good evening again.
Hey,
Very
good to see
happy
you, Stephen.
to be here. This is action item 18, and I would be remiss if I didn't recognize our partners in the audience. We have Beth Chrisman and Michelle Pretzowitz from the Truckee River Watershed Council, and we appreciate them being here. So you've seen these first 2 bullets from the last presentation, but I feel compelled to say them again. We have a long history of stewardship, management, and scientific work in the basin. And we collaboratively developed the groundwater management plan that we just talked about. We also have numerous collaborative projects across the watershed with public, private, and nonprofit partners. And one very important partner is the Truckee River Watershed Council. They are a local environmental nonprofit protecting the watershed through science, management, funding, and education. And we've got a long history of working collaboratively and very productively, I would add, with the Watershed Council. We provided seed funding for studies and access to district land for the Watershed Council's Truckee Wetlands Restoration Project. We provided LiDAR access to the council for the Martis Valley and Donner Basin watershed assessments and restoration projects. We are the lead agency for CEQA, plus have done some piping replacement projects in support of their Donner Creek Restoration Project. And we are participating in the Donner Lake Interagency Partnership for Stewardship, effectively known as DIPS. And for decades, we've participated and are participating in the Truckee River Basin Working Group. That's the TROA group of local California interests that is facilitated and run by the Watershed Council. Couple photos to share. Top left is the Truckee Wetlands Restoration Project. That's the district-owned property by the regional park across from the rodeo grounds. And there was a significant restoration project involving many partners. And the top photos, kind of at the beginning of that project and during the restoration. And the bottom is what it looks like on a nice wet summer. And it's really a beautiful project, and if you go there, you see the birds, and you see a lot of life and a lot of nature growing and thriving there. On the top right, of course, our beloved Donner Lake and Donner Basin, and what DIPS is also focused on. And then bottom right is the Donner Creek, where the restoration work is being done by the Watershed Council. So the district board recently conducted a mid-cycle review of the strategic plan. It created a new local watershed stewardship initiative to formalize the district's activities and to help capture and fund future opportunities. It's intended to expand the district's historical focus, primarily on the groundwater basin, further into the overall watershed. And there was strong community support for this new initiative. The district, the Truckee River Watershed Council, North Star CSD, and PCWA have interest in signing a memorandum of understanding regarding the Martis Valley. It's an opportunity to expand our existing partnerships and position the parties for potential external funding. It's an agreement to work together towards mutual goals and enable future cooperation and coordination. It's voluntary, and it supports the local watershed stewardship initiative, and the MOU was attached to the staff report in the board packet. There is no direct fiscal impact associated with signing this memorandum of understanding. And the recommendation is to authorize the general manager to execute the memorandum of understanding between the district, North Star Community Services District, Placer County Water Agency, and the Truckee River Watershed Council regarding the Martis Valley Groundwater Basin. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Do we have any public comments? Beth?
Hi, I'm Beth Chrisman with the Truckee River Watershed Council, and I don't have much to say, just echoing the great background that Stephen provided and that we've really enjoyed working with the PUD, and we're really enthusiastic about the local watershed initiative or stewardship initiative and how we can help you move that initiative forward. And looking forward to continuing to work on questions around it will help bring support to the basin management objectives that have been put forward in the GMP. And Michelle Prestowitz has.
Great. Thank you, board members and staff and the public. I'm Michelle Prestowitz. I'm project director at the Truckee River Watershed Council. Just want to echo everything that Beth is saying, that we have a tremendous history of working very collaboratively and successfully with the PUD. And I think especially given this new local watershed stewardship initiative, this is our usual, like I have to get the right words. But given this new initiative, we have so many more opportunities to deepen our relationship. Whether it's the examples that Stephen showed all of us, or if you have other initiatives that we can be helping you with. We really look forward to working with the staff, meeting with the staff, hopefully sometime soon, so we can strategize all of that. So just want to, again, say thank you to the PUD, to the board for supporting the work that the staff is doing, and tremendous job. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you for coming and voicing your support. We appreciate it. On to director discussion and comments. Joe?
No, not really. I'm satisfied with what's happening. Oh, I did have a question. I'm sorry. I've been thinking about it for 10 minutes. When does this committee meet, or do they meet a representative from each agency?
Yeah, the memorandum of understanding's a formalized agreement to work together. It doesn't have specific actions associated with it, but these types of MOUs and this type of collaborative work at a watershed level has been shown to be attractive to funders. And it's just another way to spend more time together and do important work.
Okay, when these things come up, these issues come up, do you, is there a committee of 4 people that meet and have a meeting on this committee?
Again, there's no formal committee, but yes, we will be meeting, and, Michelle's offer and request that
Once a month, or
there's no standing schedule nor committee.
things come up is when you meet?
Correct.
MOUs?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Tony?
No, thanks again, Michelle and Beth, for being here tonight. I think I'm really excited about this partnership and, really starting to provide the foundation for our new initiative. And this comment goes back to the last item and this item, and I just, number one, thanks to all our partners, but especially Placer County Water Agency, because at the end of the day, they really don't have a skin in the game anymore in this area, but yet they continue to really support us in the things they do, in the things we do, and really take an interest in the things that we do up here. And they always have helped support the East Slope as much as possible. And so I just want to put a shout out to their board and their staff for really continuing to be engaged in our water resource plans up here. So thank you to PCWA.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I agree with all of these things. There's a lot of power in collaborations. I so value the Truckee River Watershed Council's work. And it's a pleasure and an honor to work with you all. And everybody loves you. And that the reflected glow of that helps the PUD too. Fair or not, government agencies, for whatever reason, don't, sometimes people approach us with suspicion, which completely unjustified. Obviously, we do great work, but it's really helpful to have these community collaborations that really help to spotlight all of the good works that all of our districts perform. So I'm excited about it.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Just now? I'll second it.
Right on. Can we get a roll call?
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Laliotis?
Yes.
Vice President Finn?
Yes.
The record will note Director Harris and President Bender are absent.
Okay, moving right along.
Say, Steve, has this committee been going for 10 years?
The groundwater management work has been going on for a lot longer than that. But this MOU is new.
Well, we made it official. I thought it was like 10 years ago.
So many officials, so much attention on our watershed, which is a great thing. So it's just evolving, I think. Action item number 19, considering acceptance of the district's fiscal year end 2023 budget performance review and fund transfers. Mike Salmon, back in the hot seat.
All right. Thank you, Stephen, for warming them up. Good evening, President or Vice President Finn and members of the board. Mike Salmon, CFO for the district. This is agenda item 19, Budget Performance Review 2023. We spent a lot of time last fall planning for fiscal year 24 and 25 in the budget process, and now we're switching gears and looking back in the rearview mirror a little bit. So the 2022 and 2023 budget was adopted on November 3rd of 2021. District code requires semi-annual reviews of revenue and expenditures, and we've done that. This is the fourth of 4 reviews for the budget cycle for 22 and 2023 fiscal years. The code also requests that we point out any exceptions, anomalies, since the budget has been approved, and we'll be doing that this evening as well. Quick overview of the district financially. We're established in 1927, 97 years young. Got a big anniversary coming up, birthday coming up. 213 million in total assets, 154 million in total net position, about approximately a $65 million annual budget. There's a lot of ways to look at an annual budget. This is total inflows, total sources and uses for 2023. 81 employees for 23 and 5 board members. Breaking that down in between electric and water, these are some of the metrics, close to 15,000 customers on electric, close to 14,000 on water. The net book value of assets for water are actually about 30% higher than electric. There's a lot of water assets you don't see. They're underground, beyond all those tanks and pump stations. The numbers in that are highlighted at the very bottom with no real reference, 27 million for electric, 12 million for water. That is the liquid assets in cash in reserves, designated reserves for for electric and water. And I just put those on there this afternoon, actually, just to I'm going to talk a lot about a lot of material variances, big dollar variances, both electric and water for 2023. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces. I'm going to talk about a lot of numbers, and some of them are in the millions of dollars. But I wanted to reiterate that in a big picture scheme of things, the district is in very good financial health. It has been for many years, but it's even in better health now than it's ever been, in my professional opinion. I can go over those numbers tonight, and I will go over a few numbers. And then we will also be talking about I mentioned the audit that's going on right now. In June, we'll be presenting the audited financial statements, and we can talk with the auditor about our financial position as well. So I just wanted to put that in context. And in the staff report, there is the reserve balances, both designated as well as restricted detail. So first, this evening, I'm going to talk about the electric utility and its variances for 2023 and its numbers and moving parts and pieces of the operating fund and capital investments and its fund balances. Then I'll do the same thing for the water utility. This is the operating fund budget amounts and variances to budget for the various components of the operating reserve components for the electric utility. On the bottom right, you'll see a favorable 4.4 million variance to budget. And that's a large number. It was actually not anywhere close to that last year because of what was mentioned earlier, the purchase power problem that we had in 2022. I'll get into that a little bit here in a little bit. So the key drivers for that variance, a large variance, favorable variance, I should point out, are that capital expenditures were less than budgeted for this electric utility compared to budget that was for 2023. And then we had a transfer in variance of $2,360,000. And that's the transfer that Director Laliotis was referencing earlier in the purchase power conversation. And the reason for that transfer in 2023 was to address a big draw on cash flow in 2023 that related to 2022 expenses primarily. The purchase power overage was primarily in 2022, but there was actually, the cash flow occurred in 2023 for December's huge power bill that was way over budget, and January of 2023 that was way over budget. So we have an inflow of cash in 2023 to cover an outflow of cash in 2023 that in a large part related to expenses that were charged in 2022. So hopefully that's not too confusing. We did cover that extensively during the the rate reserve transfer of the $2,360,000 in April of last year, April 5th of 2023.
Michael, in 23, didn't we lose somewhere $1 million? When was that?
Well, we were over a budget in 2022, about 3.3 million in purchase power. So January, I can't remember exactly, but I think January may have been $1 million over. That might have been part of it. Yes, sir. So we were over in 2023, in the year 2023, which is what we're reviewing for purchase power specifically. We were way over budget in January because of the price, the wholesale price, because of the markets, Ukraine war, natural gas, and a few other drivers, and perhaps some other things going on in California. So in the Western market. And then pretty much from then on in 2023, our wholesale price per megawatt hour was at or below budget for the rest of the year. Now, we were over budget in purchase power in the winter months because we had a huge winter, and it was extreme winter temperature-wise. So we had very cold weather in the 22-23. So Q1 of 23 was very cold. So our usage of kilowatt hours was up. We had to buy more kilowatts more power, but it wasn't, so we were over in purchase power, but it wasn't because of the price, it was because of the volume. So a big difference. So I'll cover each of these components as we go through here. So the revenue was up. I mentioned more kilowatt hours purchased in Q1. After that, the rest of the 2023 on a per customer, per account basis was actually at or below kind of last year's levels. We did increase accounts a little bit more than budget in 2022, which had a ripple effect on 2023. And then we did talk about purchase power, and on the right-hand side here, and the actual variance in the financial statements is only 86,000, or 1% over budget, but that includes the CVPIA legal settlement that I'm sure the board's aware of because I talked about it during the budget process. And the budget and the financial master plan that we approved in the fall included transferring those funds to rate reserve. And so that's part of the recommendation this evening is to move those funds that they related to purchase power from 10 to 15 years ago. And as you know, we drew down on the rate reserves, so it seems appropriate to transfer those funds, and that's what the financial master plan anticipates. Operating expenses were 10% over budget, came in at about just over $15 million. A very large component of this is a familiar theme, and that is almost $1.3 million negative variance related to payroll being charged to operating costs that were anticipated to be charged to capital projects. So understand that this is not that we had a ton more employees or had a ton more payroll. It's just where the payroll was charged because we did not get to those specific projects in 2023 that were anticipated. That labor was charged to operations and they did preventative maintenance or other operational aspect projects. And so we're over in the operating expense side. And as I pointed out on the first slide for electric, we're under in capital expenditures. This is part of all of that. So they somewhat tie together. So the pipeline, because of turnover and other matters, COVID, the pipeline of projects is behind schedule. We are aware of that, consciously aware of that, and we are addressing it on various fronts, hiring engineers, hiring consultants. One of your consent items this evening was Qualis. That's a reminder that Qualis, that's what they do is help us with engineering projects. So on the electric side. We did have some savings due to position vacancies, approximately in the electric operations for 2023 specifically was a net of about two full-time equivalents for the year. That adds up in payroll savings. There was an overage in defensible space. We knew about that when we approved the annual procurements, that because of inflation and other drivers, we knew we needed to approve more than what was budgeted in 2023, which again, budget was approved in 2021, just to tread water there. So those are the big things on the expenses. We had a very large favorable variance in investment income, and that was because when we set budget, we were expecting 20 or 30 grand in interest income, and it came in at 186, and that's driven by the change in the market rates for investments with the Fed increasing interest rates. So positive impact there. So on the capital side, that is specific for operating funded, and by that I mean current year's operating revenues were going to fund the projects. We spent $3.5 million, which was $1.7 million under budget, 32%. Part of the reason we were under is the Martis Valley substation was in the budget for 23 was to happen and start construction this year, and that project is still in planning. So it's still on the radar. It's still in our 10-year capital improvement plan, but it did not occur, and that was one of the reasons we had savings. Part of the expenditures that we did have for the 3.5 million, 1.1 of that was distribution system improvements, almost $1 million in pole replacements, almost 300,000 in our project each year that we're doing to improve the Northwoods loop there, rebuild, and then 350,000 in ELF fuses, which help with our wildfire mitigation. So that's the capital expenditures component. On debt service, we had 431,000, which was essentially on budget, and that is for our COP issuance in '22. We still have not spent that 6.5 million. We do have plans to spend that in '24 and '25, and we need to spend it by mid-year 2025. And we have a game plan to do that in the budget for '24 and '25 that we approved. And Jared is actively working on that with his team. Other components of the operating fund for electric is cash inflows and outflows that are of an operating or capital nature. On the left are the items that were in accordance with budget, the funding levels there. Cap and trade was mentioned earlier tonight. 550,000 was used for Horse Butte in 2023 in accordance with budget. I believe it's 500 for 2024, and then drops to the 400 range after that. Not budgeted is the transfer in from rate reserve of 2,360,000 related to overage in purchase power wholesale cost. And that refunding plan of that, a piece of it is refunded by the CVPIA transfer that's part of tonight. And then the remainder was budgeted to be recovered over 4 years to minimize, lower the impact on ratepayers. So instead of trying to recover that next year in 2024, we're recovering that, I believe, in budget over 4 years, as well as the purchase cost adjustment to address things on a more proactive basis going forward. So I talked about operating rates funded, current year rates funded projects. That's the top line on this screen. There were other capital expenditures for electric, 64,000 in vehicle reserves for a pole trailer and a forklift. We do have multiple items in the hundreds of thousands of dollars on order that have not been delivered because of supply chain. We ordered things in 22 and 23 that still have not been delivered. Some of that's going to get delivered in 24, some in 2025, specifically on vehicles. But we did get a pole trailer and a forklift, so we're happy about that. And we did, I think last month we showed pictures of the UTV. We did get some deliveries in 24, so.
That money is materials that we have on order yet?
Well, these are fleet and equipment. For example, we ordered two electric Silverados, EV vehicles, Silverados that were well over a year ago ordered, and they're in delivery this probably in Q2 here pretty soon. We're excited about that. Electric did have close to 900,000 in expenditure for their portion of the Pioneer Trail pipeline for their portion to share the trench. For reserves, the current balance for operating reserve is 8,252,000, which is 400,000 over the goal. But that's before we do the recommended transfer of 476,000 in CVPIA funds. Capital reserve is at almost 10.7 million. It's slightly below what the goal was in the financial master plan. That's due to the timing of that Pioneer Trail cost sharing expenditure. Vehicle reserves is building up. It's at almost 1.5 million, and that's due to supply chain issues. As those deliveries happen, it'll hammer down this vehicle reserve balance. And the rate reserve is lower than it should be, but we know that because we drew on it and we have a plan in place and it's in budget to refund that over time. Part of that refunding is the CVPIA transfer. Okay. Moving on to water. Water has a favorable variance net cash flow for the operating fund of $2.1 million. The key reasons for that are the capital expenditures from the operating revenues were 3.3 million, almost 3.4 million less than budget. We had a significant amount of capital expenditures, close to a record, if not a record expenditures, and I'm going to cover that in a few minutes, for water in 2023, but it was primarily the expenditure of the project proceeds that we issued in 2022. So we knew we were going to be spending that money first, which allows us to build up our operating reserves. And I'll cover that as well here shortly for water. Operating revenues of 18 million were 1% favorable to budget. Rent, water pays rent to electric for this building, was on budget. Operating expenses of almost 12 million were 800,000 or 7% over budget. The keynotes here, that's a material variance. 212,000 of that was two town of Truckee asphalt invoices for our share, the district's share of asphalting projects in 2021 and 2023. They did not bill us for 2022, nor do we anticipate a bill for the 22 year. So we got hit with one stale and one current bill from the town of Truckee related to asphalting. Our share for 212,000. These items were reviewed and approved by the board, just a reminder. But they were not anticipated in budget for 2023. Yes, sir, one of them. Yep. And transportation overhead, in the staff report for this item, I talk about the woes of fleet cost, in particular repair and maintenance and fuel cost. It's a real impact, and it's 109,000 to our water utility in 2023. And then 362,000 in water operations overages, about 15%. That is a ton of smaller stuff, under 100,000, that adds up. Inflation is most definitely a player here. It cannot be ignored. We talked a lot about inflation, both electric and water, during the 24-25 budget cycle in the fall. So I'm not going to belabor it, but we were cognizant of it then, and now you're seeing the fruits of that labor in that variance. We were certainly impacted also by the extreme winter of 22-23 and leaks and things like that. Chad did, and his team did a great job of finding some metrics there with respect to leaks addressed in the spring and summer of 2023 related to the extreme winter we had, and also snow removal efforts and catching up on preventative maintenance. Supply chain issues, we're definitely made a conscious effort. I think we've talked about this before, where in the past, if we bought 10 of something, we might buy 20 of something now, to even if there's just a hint of some delay where something that we thought that we typically got in a couple of weeks is now taking a month or may take 2 months, and we do not want to jeopardize operations for not having some stock of something. So it doesn't go to waste, it just can impact financials there as well. And we also took on that generator to improve the efficiency and of our generators and ensuring that they'll operate when they're needed. We took on a generator preventative maintenance generator contract to ensure that those are always performing well. So those things do add up and had an impact. Investment income, like electric, is way up. Capital expenditures from the rates funded, current year rates funded, was 1.8 million, 3.3 million favorable to budget. This was anticipated in the financial master plan of the current year's budget that we are operating in. There's a related transfer that is in the recommendation. The 1.8 million here includes 458,000 in well rehabs, 340 in tank rehabs, and other capital expenditures. On the right is debt service, which was on budget, and the components of that are listed here. I should remind everyone that both the electric and water utilities are not highly leveraged. In other words, we have a very modest amount of debt, particularly for a utility. Utilities are notorious for having a lot of debt, being highly leveraged because debt covers things that it lasts a very long period of time, 20, 30-year investments, right? And but we do not have a large amount of debt here at the district on the electric or water side. Fund transfers. So this is non-operating activities. On the left is consistent with budget items, and on the right is a recommended transfer that puts us in alignment with the financial master plan as part of the 24-25 budget, basically transferring from operating reserve to capital reserve of water, which I'll show you here in a second. Very excited to talk about water's reserves when I get there. Remind me that I'm excited. So there were, as I mentioned, there was the current year's revenues funded, rates funded, which is this top line capital projects, which were under budget. And then, and a lot of this pretty much has to do with timing of the spending of the debt proceeds, project proceeds, and capital reserve expenditures, et cetera. So it's not that we weren't busy and Chad and team were not busy. They were quite busy spending $14 million actually in 2023 in capital expenditures. And that's mainly that second line, 11.1 million. And this is the expenditures of the 2022 COP debt funds by project. And so we've spent 15.2 million drawn down, and we have $1 million to go. And 11.1 of that, was spent in 2023. Water is very actively reinvesting in infrastructure for the district and for reliability and quality of water quality and reliability of water here in the district, addressing the aging infrastructure. The CIP plan, over $8 million a year, is being executed on quite effectively here in 2023. So there's just over $1 million left to be spent in those funds that will finish up in 2024, as soon as the snow melts. So looking at operating reserve, the balance for water is 10 million. I never thought I'd hear, who would have thunk that I would have said that about water just a few years ago. So they were certainly somewhat hand to mouth. Felt like anyway at times, but have a very good operating reserve balance. It's part of the financial master plan of 22-23, anticipated that with the COP issuance, and then it continues with the financial master plan that we're currently operating under for 24-25. So to balance things, recommending transferring 1,985,000 out of operating reserve over to the right into the capital reserve, which will bolster that. It'll be actually over what the financial master plan with that transfer by about $500,000. But then we'll also have a nice starting to gain on having a capital reserve balance for the water utility as well, which is definitely needed. But the operating reserve serves as a fundamental foundational reserve balance that every rating agency, debt issuance company in the country looks at to say, how many days cash do you have on hand to cover operating expenses and debt service and those type of things. So critical that that balance is at an appropriate level. So notable financial matters was part of the district code, and certainly I covered a fair amount of that. Inflation is by far one of the number one tickers for impacting both electric and water, in my opinion. This is an expert from, we did as part of the budget process this year, we looked at over 200 line items procurement items and for electric and 24 bid items, and saw a 16% inflation rate just in that little bit of analysis. I couldn't get my hands on the water side of that. Increasing rates improved our investment income. If we were issuing debt now, it'd probably be at a higher rate than 2022. So that's a hindsight rearview mirror, good one. The rate of pay variance is talked about in the staff report. That certainly had a material impact on 2023. Supply chain issues continue to be something we monitor. It's still out there, in particular with transformers, and but we've been able to manage it and been able to function to date. Overall, okay. And then the record winter 22-23 definitely impacted the 2023 financials, both in revenue and as well as in some of our cost areas. And then I put this together. The delay in some electric capital projects certainly has my attention, so to speak. And I was a bit concerned that kind of where things were at as far as our investment in our utility. And so I put this metric together. This is one of probably 35 or 40 that the rating agencies and other analysts in New York would look at. And this is net capital assets. Then the next row is the year-end number of accounts. And then the third row is net capital assets per account. And then that change from 20 to 2023. So that's in 3 years. What has the change been? And then what's the growth rate in those 3 years, that change, effective growth rate over 3 years? And I was kind of concerned with capital investment and electric not being on plan, that we may have been not even treading water, but regressing. And I'm happy to say we did not regress. It was a small growth rate, but we did maintain and tread water and kept our head a little bit above water and gained on it a little bit at 1% rate. So that's better than going negative. And then on the right, you'll see a 14% change in water utility with a growth rate of 4.5% for the last 3 years. And that number will probably uptick as well as we move further into the capital improvement plan. And then as we gain traction on electric projects, we'll certainly start gaining on this line item. Anyway, just one way to look at it. No direct financial impact on this report. There are 2 recommended transfers. The recommendation this evening, A, accept this report of the budget performance for 2023 end of year, which includes variances identified since the adoption of the budget for 2023. B, consistent with budget fiscal year 24 financial master plan expectations, authorize internal book transfers as of 12/31/2023 as follows. 1, electric utility, $475,763 from general operating reserve to rate reserve for CVPIA litigation settlement proceeds received in 2023. 2, water utility, $1,985,000 from general fund operating reserve to capital reserve for capital expenditure timing variances between years in 2023. And with that, I will turn it back over to Vice President Finn. Thank you.
Thank you,
Are we
Mike.
transferring anything tonight?
Yes, we are. Well, hopefully, yes.
Yeah, yes, hopefully.
That's the plan, or that's the
Yeah,
request.
I did see the transfers going on.
We're gonna move some money around a little bit.
It looked like he was done.
Well, he's done. It was a blizzard of numbers, for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know how you keep them figures right.
That's why he makes the big bucks. Do we have any public comment on this presentation this evening? Seeing none. Good job. Bringing it to the board for any questions or discussion.
There's a lot of questions.
Yep. I feel you. Director Laliotis, do you have any?
No, I mean, thank you for the report. There's a lot of information there. Obviously, we are looking back, but, you know, there's the ebb and flow of what's happened over the last few years, you know, is unfortunate, but sometimes it's good news and sometimes it's bad news. But overall, I mean, our cash flow is on the good side, and, you know, I think, Chad, you showed up, Jared, in spending all that money, so Jared, you're.
You got some catching up to do.
You got some catching up to do.
Spend away.
And that's the sort of the nature of the COP beast. So I look forward to the CAGR on the electric utility increasing, right? So, no, thank you. Great presentation. So much information. So hard to digest it all in one sitting, but I appreciate it.
Good. So there we go.
So there we go. So
Yeah.
I will make a motion to approve staff's recommendation of item A and items B1 and 2 as presented to the board.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Yeah. Second, and I'm glad we have Mike to keep these things straight.
Right, exactly.
There's a
Thank you,
lot of
Director
stuff.
Aguirre.
I'm going to say we look really good for 97. Good job, y'all. And yeah, I think we can have a roll call vote. I'm cool with that, moving and seconding.
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Laliotis?
Yes.
Vice President Finn?
Yes.
Record will note Director Harris and President Bender are absent.
Thank you very much. All right. Whew. Okay, we're on the home stretch here. We have a workshop on water quality. Okay, considering review of the district's 2023 Water Utility Annual Consumer Confidence Report. Chad, our fourth director presenting this evening.
Good evening, Vice President Finn, board, and members of the public that are still with us here. I have the opportunity to present item 20, which is the Consumer Confidence Report. So for those who, for the benefit of the public, I'd like to just take a step backwards, so to say, and say, where does this come from? Why are we doing it? So the first thing is back in 1996, the Safe Drinking Water Act was codified. And part of that said that we will do these consumer confidence reports, and we will cover 4 basic principles. 1, where's the water coming from? How are we getting the water, and what are we doing with it? Second, any known contaminants or constituents that are known, how are we doing in that when we're monitoring them? Third, what are some potential contaminants that could be coming in? If there's something new that's coming in, we're doing assessments, we're looking for any potential contaminants that could be there. And then fourth, how are we doing with compliance to the different regulatory actions that are taking place? Okay, so we have 2 systems that we report on each year. We have the Truckee, the main system, and then we also have the Hirschdale system. So we're required to have this done and out to our customers by July 1st of each year. Historically, we would have had a leaflet that would have went out with all the bills, and you would have had that paper that was associated with it telling you what was there. However, in 2012, this changed. We were able to do what's called the one-click, or we're able to have this so that when you go to our website, you have one click and you're able to see these different consumer confidence reports. And then we do not have to mail that leaflet or that piece of information to all of our customers. So we wanted to start a little bit about what happened and what's been going on over the last year. First off, we prepare this report every year with compliance to the State Water Resource Control Board. They dictate how the layouts are going to be, or they dictate how different aspects of this are going to go forth. We had no reportable violations. That's a great thing. We have amazing water quality here, and we're very fortunate to have what we have here. We last year took this out to our customers in June. We're able to do this 1 month earlier this year. We're just trying to get it to our customers as quick as we can because we're very proud of what the water department has been able to do and the staff that is there. So there will still be some printed copies for those who are internet challenged, we'll call them, and they're not able to go to the one step. We are going to have printed copies available for the public here in the office. So some aspects of this is not every constituent is checked every single year. It's based off of the risk that is associated. So if we have a long track record of not having these issues, we might be able to get a 3 or 6 year extension on these because the testing is extremely expensive. So all the samples are taken with a very rigorous protocol and very detailed how we're going to do this. And they're all tested at state certified labs that are regulated by the State Water Resource Control Board. Generally speaking, these requirements are stricter than that of what you'd see with the FDA, and so I'm not taking a stab at bottled water, but they're regulated under the FDA. We're regulated under the EPA here. So the physical impact of this is already accounted for in the budget. This is a budgeted item in the 2024 budget, and so we're well within the budget on this one item. And the recommendation is to review the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District's main system and Herschel System's 2023 Water Quality Consumer Confidence Reports and provide feedback to the staff. Thank you. I know I stand between you and the end of the meeting here, so we'll...
Thank you. But you know what? We do always love this particular report. It's always a pleasure to see what we're not drinking, actually.
Exactly.
So, do we have any, I mean, it's a workshop, but still, if there's any public comments, I'd be happy to hear it. And seeing none, any board comments or questions or congratulations?
I know we're not gonna start that Hurstville project until we have no snow.
Well, yes.
Good spring.
No, it's still on the docket.
Are we going to approach the state to consolidate the Hurstdale system with the Truckee main system so that Hurstdale will no longer be a separate public water system?
Yeah, we are. So part of it is we need that physical connection first, as you would know, but just for public, we are looking at a physical connection that's currently being engineered. We're in the easements and the legal, so to say, of this, and as soon as we have all that addressed, we're ready to move forward. We're really hopeful that we could possibly move forward this summer with that. That is the first step, and the second step would be exactly what you're referring to, Director Laliotis.
Be exciting.
One less thing to keep track of.
Yep. Wish it all together.
Somehow that air conditioning went on again.
I'm loving it, I'll be honest.
I was a little overheated myself.
A couple of times I feel some cold air coming in. I'm looking for the fence right over me.
Okay. I think we're good. Thank you. Thank you for the information. And again, it's always a pleasure. I look forward to, we have it in our packet. I look forward to it showing up on the website and sharing it with everybody else.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you. Okay, we're on the home stretch here, folks. Routine business, considering approval of the treasurer's report for April 2024. Dun, dun, dun. Motion? Are you already there?
Did you do public comment?
Oh, no, I didn't. I forgot public comment.
We're approving the treasurer's report.
We may be, but first we're going to ask if there's any public comment on the treasurer's report.
What's that?
I forgot to ask for public comment on the treasurer's report, so I'm doing it right now.
Oh, okay.
And I don't see any. Seeing none. Do we have, can we just jump right to a motion?
Do we have what?
a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
Oh, yes, we have a motion for that.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
I'll second the approval of the treasurer's report of April 3rd, 2024.
Perfect. Do we have a roll call, please?
Director Aguirre?
Aye?
Director Laliotis?
Yes.
Vice President Finn?
Yes.
The record will note Director Harris and President Bender are absent.
Okay. And lastly, routine
the bills?
business. Well, we didn't actually do that. We approved the treasurer's report, though.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills. So
Already did.
Yeah, now we don't.
They're already paid.
It's all good. Considering approval of the minutes for February 7th and March 6th, 2024. Do we have any public comment on the minutes from our February meeting? Seeing none. Directors, do we have a motion? Oh, now,
minutes?
yes.
For both minutes?
I think it's just for February.
February and March.
The
Oh,
first
February
one.
and March. Oh, oops. Oh, yep, there it is. It's right in front of me. It's a little late. Haven't had dinner. February and March, minutes for both meetings.
I apologize, I just noted something. The first set of minutes says from Wednesday, January 17th.
Yeah, since she read them, he can, I'll second
I
it,
did
since
read it all.
I reviewed them, and I
did
didn't
too.
catch that till just now.
It's the nature of the beast.
Thank you for catching that. I think we could, if there aren't any other changes, we could approve with that correction.
But are the minutes
Are the
correct?
minutes correct? Yeah, that would be the,
Oh, I see what you're saying. You know what, let staff pull that set of minutes and confirm those are the accurate minutes from the date we're proposing, and come back and approve those at a later date.
So the motion will be to improve the minutes for March 6th, 2024 only.
Correct.
okay. I feel like,
Did you
Yeah.
read the second?
not yet.
Go ahead.
No, I didn't read them either.
I did. I'll second it.
Oh, good, no. Oh, did he make a motion?
He did. He did.
I'm sorry.
Director Laliotis is way ahead of us.
Pointed at me.
No, I pointed you to second it.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna second it.
Well, we do have
okay.
a motion and 2 seconds. Yeah, we're good. So I think we're on. If we could get a roll call, please.
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Laliotis?
Yes.
Vice President Finn?
Yes.
The record will note Director Harris and President Bender are absent.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we will be moving into closed session for a couple of items, a performance review pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B, General Manager, and 24, closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2, conference with legal counsel, exposure to litigation, 3 cases. To closed session we go. Thank you all. I appreciate everybody being here this evening.